Okay, hey, everybody, welcome to an episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. To have another cool little review for you guys from the brand Vario. So they are a Singapore-based microbrand established back in 2016. And in terms of type of watch, it's a classic field watch. Some key characteristics and design language. You're looking for something within this space. First, you're going to find that modest sizing. You're going to have Arabic numerals, typically with a 12 and 24-hour scale, over a black or cream dial traditionally. Now, this is their 1945 A-11S field watch in the Heron white colorway, and it's essentially a modernized homage to the classic A11 field watch that really remixes updated design cues into an iconic formula. These go for $198 direct from Vario's site, and this review sample was kindly provided by the Vario brand for the purpose of this video. Now, there are a few things to mention here. This is the 40 millimeter size, and it is also available in a smaller 35 millimeter size. I particularly gravitated towards the 40. I also gravitated towards this colorway. Essentially, you can get it in a more standard black dial option, a gray dial, or this being the white dial variation. I do enjoy the kind of more contemporary feel this modern punch adds to the format. And yeah, I just think ultimately it gives you a nice bit of extra legibility and kind of crispness and kind of a high visibility vibe to it. So with that said, let's go ahead and zoom the camera out, get this piece in hand, and take a closer look. Okay, now first things first, something you guys are probably noticing is that there is a lack of that central seconds hand. There's actually a disc that does replace it that is lumed, and you can see, of course, since this is a quartz powered watch, it's going to be ticking along, but because it's so close to the center of that pinion, it's actually not very noticeable in terms of the jerkiness that you would get if there was an actual central seconds hand. Now, that was done deliberately. It's a very fun choice. Something else some of you are noticing is that this has a really cool grainy dial. And some of you might be wondering, how can you have this granular dial and also have it be solar quartz? Now, that is because the actual cell there, the solar cell, is built into the rehaut. So it's actually on the outer portion of the watch. And see if I can get it to focus there. It's wanting to focus on the, let's see, I can dial this in. There we go. Check it out. So you can see there, that is where the solar cell is so very smartly tucked away. The nice thing is that you do still get to get a very fun traditional dial, and that this is also solar powered. Now, in terms of the specs here, 40 millimeters in diameter, only 9.1 millimeters thick, so very nice thinness there. 47.8 millimeters lug to lug, so very, very wearable, and this is in the larger sizing. Of course, if you have a smaller wrist or you just prefer something a bit more old school and traditional, you can always go with the smaller size as well. You're still going to get that sapphire crystal, which is flat with an inner AR coating, which does help you, visually enjoy this very high definition dial here, which I think is really the highlight of the watch. You're going to have a fixed bezel with a nice polished bevel there, nicely accenting. You're going to see also some nice polished bevels there on the actual case sides that run down the lugs. So very cool. And you know what? If this was a couple, I shouldn't say, well, I mean, there was one point where seeing stuff like this was uncommon because it's just a finer little detail. And no, it's not done to some crazy luxury level, but having, I'm just going to give it a quick little wipe here, guys. Having these high polished bevels there transitioning in between the nice satinized brushing there is very sharp, and it's a beautiful little pop of just extra work that, you know, that these brands are just doing everything that they can to really offer you something quite special, especially at the price point. So very nice, quite impressive. I know these days it's very common to see those high polished bevels, but it wasn't that long ago, you know, back in the beginnings of this channel, where stuff like this was definitely more common on much more expensive watches. Now, getting into some other details here, guys, this crown is signed. It is just a push-pull crown, though, because you're only getting 50 meters of water resistance or 5 atmospheres. Now, in terms of the case back, it is a screw-in case back, which is nice. And you can see here it's nicely etched. Other than that, you know, still quite sterile but solid, which is what helps keep the thinness down when you look at this silhouette here. Now, the movement inside, although you can't see it, I mean, you can see that really cool solar cell, is going to be the Solar Quartz Miota 2170. It has a 4-month power reserve on a full charge. And typically, if you wanted to have a full charge, you'd wear this outdoors for at least 30 hours. And in terms of accuracy, it's going to be accurate to plus or minus 20 seconds per day. And that's ultimate accuracy. So it'll be somewhere within that. And again, if it was in the extremes, then it would be, you know, somewhere, you know, up until that point. Now, the dial here, guys, again, I feel like is the star of the show. Although we've seen many, I mean, even just on this channel, the A11 is such a classic field watch. At this point, it's quite iconic. So we've seen a couple of iterations of this type of dial, you know, from other brands. But I think in this white colorway with the granular dial, it's just something that's quite special and very cool for it to be quite affordable. It does have these beautiful raised hour markers, as you guys can see there. So nicely embossed. Very, very cool. And quite legible, of course, within the daylight time frame. It does have loomed hands, but of course with a dial like this, you're not going to see really any loom anywhere else on the dial, which is a bit of a drawback of this. But the nice thing is you're going to have that ultimate legibility during daylight, and then you're going to have some high contrast within lighting transition, which we'll definitely get to. The hands are also nicely done in that gloss black, which plays off of the numerals on the dial as well. You're getting 20mm lugs, which are going to be very, very useful. Even getting quick release spring bars. This has a 2mm taper, nicely signed tang buckle here, and then we have nicely reinforced pinholes as well. Now, I do have a slightly larger than average 7.5-inch wrist, so I believe I'm going to be down to the last few holes here. But the nice thing is, with this 20mm lug width, you're going to have a lot of other options in terms of what you can fit into, you know, to get this watch on your wrist. So speaking of that, let's actually get it on the wrist and see how it wears. Okay, guys, as you can see on my 7.5-inch wrist, this wears quite nicely. Some of you might be thinking that's a bit large for a field watch, but I will say, thanks to their design language there with the numerals pushed more to the center of the dial, it does help it wear its wide stance quite well. I mean, it is a relatively open dial, but you guys can see part of that is going to be thanks to that very thin profile, which is going to make it appear a bit larger. But some of you might be seeing this and say, hey, I like that. I like that it's contemporary, that feels modern, it feels sporty and versatile to an everyday aspect. Now, of course, if I get my wrist a bit too close to the lens here, you're going to notice that it is going to appear for some reason quite large. It's because they're getting a fair amount of perspective distortion. It's just going to make the watch seem a lot bigger than it actually is. So what I like to do is keep my wrist nice and low, and all of a sudden, hey, look at that. It looks way more centered on the wrist. You're seeing the sides of the strap more. Now, if I tighten up the frame here, you're going to be able to get still a detailed look, but just add a bit of a truer aspect ratio as to how this may lay on your own wrist. Now, if this was me and I was a designer, I probably wouldn't have offered these two sizes. I would have just went with one 38mm size and tried to kind of please a bit of everybody. But I think this is also an approach to pleasing more folks because some people really do enjoy a small watch and some people really do enjoy a larger watch. For me, this 40 millimeter out of the options, again, felt like the right answer, especially when you think about the fact that this type of dial layout is also pretty well known within the aviation side. And of course, pilots' watches are known for being a little bit on the larger side. I would say a full-size pilot's watch should be in between 40 and 42 millimeters, whereas a field watch definitely fits more within that 38 millimeter kind of classic range. So again, of course, every wrist is different. Everyone's preferences are different. There is no right or wrong answer. I'm just sharing my own thoughts and feedback, from the perspective of somebody who's handled thousands of watches, reviewed and critiqued quite a few along the way. So yeah, if this was me and I was trying to produce something again, that was really going to appeal at maximum level to me, yeah, I think I would really enjoy this in a 38 millimeter. Of course, I definitely hold on to that 20 millimeter lug width in terms of versatility of the sizing, but you guys can see how thin that is. And again, for a watch that costs under $200, I think that is pretty awesome. So with that said, let's actually get this off the wrist, set up for some Lume shots, low light transition, and closing thoughts. Okay, let's go ahead and hit the lights here. All right, so quite bright at the hands. Unfortunately, again, not much going on in way of the dial, but you're not always going to be in pitch black situations. Let's be honest, guys, you're going to be typically in some level of transitional lighting because you're not always going to be out in the middle of a field enjoying direct sunlight. So it is nice to see what these colors, textures, and finishes render like in less than optimal lighting. And you guys can see here, as long as you have some bit of light on the dial, it's going to capture it quite nicely, and there's going to be a high level of contrast. Of course, if it's darker, yes, you're going to have to do a bit of orientation on your own, but otherwise, hey, there you go. If you do want something with the possibility of more lume, I would assume the two other variants are going to be better suited for that, but I don't know 100% because I haven't checked out those two models. Now, I will say this one, again, this isn't your main watch, at least for me, or people that I find watch YouTube videos of watch reviews. Typically, their one and only watch isn't a $200 watch. People whose one and only $200 watch, they're not necessarily enthusiasts. They just have a watch more as a tool. So for me, again, I see this from the point of view as somebody who collects watches. Will have various watches for various situations. So you'll always have something else to compensate for the shortcomings of another model. You can see here, even with this just bit of light, you're still going to get a nice amount of legibility, which again, I can appreciate. So with that said, let's go ahead, get the lights back on here and get into some closing thoughts, guys. Vintage inspired good looks with modern build quality while offering versatile sizing options. So very strong from that perspective. Now, in terms of model variants, this is again also available in smaller 35 millimeter versions. Definitely check the site links for dial, color options, and availability. In terms of comparable models, guys, as much as legacy brands have shifted upmarket as of late, more and more microbrands are popping up to fill the void on the entry-level side. So there's more competition than really ever in the $200 range, but thankfully, I think this Vario really proves its value regardless of the current comparables. So like having a different watch at a different price point that's available isn't going to justify this watch. I think that's one of its strong suits, is that I think just, specs alone, execution, creativity, versatility alone, this is definitely worth its price point. I think its asking price at $198 is completely fine. And I think, as again, this being somebody's watch within a collection of many other watches, then it just makes it even more of a fun little value proposition. So for me, guys, bottom line, at just under $200, you really can't go wrong with this versatile 40 millimeter width paired to a 20 millimeter lug width, featuring an AR coated sapphire crystal and a hassle-free movement, of course, with that solar quartz operation. Really, the only thing I would say that could improve it, but also while not, recategorizing it or putting it up into a different price bracket, would be, it would have been nice to have 100 meters of water resistance, which is 10 atmospheres. So 50 meters is totally fine for a non-diver, quote unquote, but I think 100 would have been better. Just for an everyday adventure type of watch, and especially if you were not going to do a screw down crown. If you do a screw down crown, I think sometimes you can get away with 50 meters, and it's less of an issue because you're just like, all right, well, as long as the crown is down, I'm good. But in this case, with a push-pull crown, it'd be nice to know that the gaskets were overbuilt enough to just give you that little extra layer of protection. But let me know what you all think down in the comments below. If you like the video, please would like, and if you haven't already, please subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.